Hello, my friends. Chapter 10, Lesson 3. And what we're looking at, as we have been looking at this for the last couple of days, is whether or not our government was able to fix the economy and get us out of the Great Depression. And even if our government should get us out of the Great Depression, or if it should end up letting us as Americans solve the problems ourselves. So let's just kind of set the stage for where we are again, just so we remember everything that's been going on. We've talked about Roosevelt here for the last couple of days, from 1932 to 1936, and we talked about the first and the second New Deals, his programs to get Americans back to work, to get the economy going again, to get people spending money. What we're going to talk about here today in this lesson is instead 1936 to 1940, give or take, and what we call the last New Deal. And let's set the stage for how and why this last New Deal takes place. What we're looking at is trouble that Roosevelt has with the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court had been striking down again and again and again Roosevelt's New Deal programs. They had determined, and we talked about this yesterday, that the NRA, the National Recovery Administration, was unconstitutional, and they continue to do that. They strike down the Agricultural Adjustment Act. They say it's unconstitutional. And they said that they were going to hear court cases about two of Roosevelt's new programs that he was using to get people to support him: Social Security for the elderly and the Wagner Act for union workers. And Roosevelt is just irate that the Supreme Court is stopping him from making changes that he thinks are going to get our country and our economy going again. So he's going to attack the Supreme Court, because here's the problem with the court. Let me bring this diagram in. There are 9 people on the Supreme Court. And at the time of Roosevelt in 1937, 5 of those people are conservative Republicans and 4 of them are liberal Democrats. Well, what's the big deal? Well, this means that Roosevelt's enemies, the 5 conservative Republicans, outnumber his allies, the liberal Democrats. So Roosevelt needs to find a way to change the numbers. If he could, Roosevelt would love to get rid of these conservative Republican judges and replace them with more liberal judges, judges that might help him in these upcoming court cases on Social Security and on the Wagner Act. So how could he do this if he's looking for really finding a way to kind of make these court cases change in his favor? He comes up with an idea. He says to Congress, I'm proposing a bill, a new law, and it's called a court packing law, because you're going to pack the court in with people that are friendly to you. And he says that I should be able to appoint a new judge every time someone hits the age of 70 and doesn't retire. Well, why does that matter? Because almost all of those conservative Republicans that Roosevelt wants to get rid of, they're over the age of 70. So Roosevelt is saying, if I can get this law through Congress, then I can get rid of those Republicans I don't like, and I can replace them with liberal Democrat judges that I do like, that will make sure Social Security and the Wagner Act get passed. But this is a mistake. People across the country are worried for different reasons. I'll show you what I mean. White Southerners are afraid that the judges Roosevelt will put down might end segregation, whereas African Americans are afraid that the judges that Roosevelt will appoint will be racist. Lots of people think the president would be too powerful if they can just put whatever judge they want on there every time somebody turns 70 and doesn't retire. Lots of people are starting to compare Roosevelt to a dictator, because our Constitution has rules. Yet here, Roosevelt is messing with the Supreme Court and maybe turning the United States into a dictatorship. People are really upset about this. His telling people to retire or move over, right? So, what are the results of this attack on the Supreme Court? Well, believe it or not, the judges change how they vote. Several of the judges vote for Social Security and the Wagner Act and say it's good, and they don't change. But it does hurt FDR's reputation, and it does give people who were Republican some ammunition to attack him with, such as, can't believe the president wants to do this. We shouldn't have a Democratic president because they just want all the power. And that's what they're doing, stopping Roosevelt, convincing people that maybe he wants to become a dictator. Unfortunately, that plan is foiled because of something that happens right there in 1937. It's the recession of 1937. Roosevelt wants to get those people back on his side that he made angry. He wants to end deficit spending. Remember that spending more than you have is deficit spending? Because he wants to find a way to pay for his programs without having to deficit spend. So he's going to raise taxes for Social Security and cut spending of some of his programs. This is really bad because it's going to take a lot of money out of the economy all at once. Remember, we want people to spend money, right? Well, if we have a pile of money here that is in the pockets of people, and we say, I'm going to take some of that money in taxes, that's less money for you to spend. And if we have the government, which had been spending a whole bunch of money on all of these programs to put people back to work, and they say, well, we're going to cut spending, that's more money out of the economy. And unemployment will rise. And you can see that here on this little chart. You can see unemployment going down, 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 down until 1937 when he raises taxes and cuts spending, and it goes way up again. And Roosevelt is able to use this idea to request new programs, and he calls it the last New Deal. And really his focus here is on African Americans and poor whites in the South. Here's what he does. He says, we're going to give loans to sharecroppers so that they can purchase their own farms. And we're going to abolish and do away with child labor. When these two things happen, Republicans and white Southern Democrats begin to block any more legislation that Roosevelt really wants to get through Congress because he helps African Americans in the opinion of white Democrats in the South too much, and he takes away child labor and makes it more expensive for factories to work, something Republicans don't like. So this is going to bring kind of Roosevelt's New Deal legislation to an end now that he's made people so angry that he's not able to get any new laws through Congress, but that doesn't mean that his impact is over. Because for the rest of America's history up to the present day, bye, Mrs. Davenport.
Bye.
The federal government is going to balance no involvement, laissez-faire, with some regulation. We're going to work out conflicts between different groups of people, businesses and workers, conservatives and liberals, making us a broker state. And we are going to have a safety net where even if you fall in America, you're going to be protected from complete economic disaster. And on top of that, like we saw the first day we started this, we're going to have public works going from coast to coast to coast. Here's a map of just even some of those coast works that go coast to coast. And this map is just done by volunteers. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different New Deal programs that we have in our country in an attempt to get Americans back to work. So I think that's a good place to stop for this, and we'll pick this up again in class.